Hey everyone, Robert Ferringo of Doc Sports here with the next team on my 2023 NFL Power Rankings countdown. We got number 27, the Houston Texans. We have a very special guest from the Toro Times website, Jackson Huxell. We will get to Jackson in one moment, but first we got to pay those bills, right? So bang on that link down in the description and take advantage of the free $60 that we are offering to all of our Docs customers. That's $60, same as cash, that can be used towards any handicapper, any sport, any package that you want. Also, if you enjoy this video, like and subscribe. We are counting down the top 32 teams. I will have other guests from other websites as well as Docs sports handicappers in here. So yeah, if you're into it, like and subscribe and be sure to get updates when the next videos are posted. All right, Jackson, how you doing there, old boy?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I am doing fantastically well. Now we're talking Houston Texans today, obviously. Now I'm not familiar. No, I don't know if you are familiar with the saying, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me three times, and I'm just an idiot, and you should never feel bad for me ever." Right? So I feel like that's kind of where we're going with the Texans here. This is the third year in a row. 3 new head coaches in 3 years. 3 new systems, sets of assistant coaches, new starting quarterbacks. Why is this reboot of the Texans? Why should we expect this to be any different from the last 2 years, which were kind of debacles?
I think when you have a new guy like D'Amico Ryans, who, when you look at it, he's familiar with the system. He played for the team, the organization that loved D'Amico. You have a bunch of young talent such as CJ Stroud, all of these younger guys. Nico Collins, I think when you have a younger culture, I think that's going to make it easier for them to bond together. I mean, let's take the Reds, for example, in MLB. The Reds were also like a young team. They had a lot of new stuff. They were in and out of veterans. And I think I like this team, like the Texans. I love it. They have a lot of young talent, but they're also surrounded by a bunch of veterans. You got Davis Mills, backup quarterback. He's going to be decent enough to help CJ Stroud develop. You got Devin Singletary. He's going to help develop the running back, Dameon Pierce. I just like how they have a lot of veterans on the team to help the young guys they just drafted as well.
Yeah, that kind of leads into what I was going to talk about next is what do you think of this offseason? They've been a lot more active this offseason than they have each of the last 2 years. I just feel like they've done a better job of setting D'Amico Ryans up to have a little early success more than they did with David Culley and Lovie Smith. What are some of your impressions of what Houston has done this offseason, both from a draft perspective and from a free agency perspective?
Yeah, I think they're going for the win now perspective, but I think that might bite them a little bit in the future because when you go for the win now culture, it's going to be harder to build the future because when you draft CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, those are two immediate starters you're going to have on that team. But after that, I don't know what you're going to do after that. I mean, you signed all these free agents, all these veterans, and then that just takes away from a great draft class. By far, I think one of the best draft classes this season the Texans had. You get Henry Tuatu, third round at Alabama. I think he should have been a first-round pick. He played really well. You have Xavier Hutchinson, the 6th. They traded up with Buffalo. Xavier Hutchinson he plays like a tight end. He's 6'3", 220, I believe. He's fast. He's hard to take down. He could be the next DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion. I like him. You got also Juice Scruggs. He's been making a lot of noise. Second-round selection out of Penn State. You sign a guy like what's the tight end? His name, I can't think of his name right
Schultz?
now. Yeah, Dalton Schultz. It's like just like the Bengals did last year, 2 years ago. Hayden Hurst, he's good, and it's a prove-it deal, and I think it's going to really work out for the Texans for them because he's much better than Hurts, but very athletic. He's going to bring a big weapon to CJ Stroud. I love the adding of Singletary, like I said before. Singletary is a proven back. I think this is going to be the year that he gets 1,000 yards with Dameon Pierce. I really think so. I mean, I think that's going to be a dynamic duo, the hard stop. And then I think Nico Collins might actually have his best season.
Now, tell me, here's my working theory on their draft decision to get CJ Stroud and then trade back up to get Will Anderson. I feel like these guys were going back and forth for months between the two, and they really just couldn't decide which one. So rather than decide and be wrong, they made that deal, gave up a lot of draft capital just so they wouldn't mess it up. So now, if they both end up being terrible, hey, whatever. Everyone had them as top 5 picks. If one of them turns out to be a Hall of Famer and the other's a bust, well, okay, 50-50 is not bad. What do you think of that theory, that they were just so afraid of taking Will Anderson and then having CJ Stroud be amazing, or vice versa, that they kind of biffed it and gave up a little too much just because they didn't want to take one or the other?
I like your idea of what you said, because I think honestly, if they would have stayed there, I think it would have made sense to draft Jackson Smith-Njigba. You have his teammate from Ohio State. I think that would have helped him a lot more, get more comfortable with the offense. But at the same time, you can't deny that Will Anderson isn't one of the best defensive prospects to come out of this draft in a while. And I like the idea that they drafted up, but at the same time, I think when you look at where Smith-Njigba fell, I think you at the same time have to think, why would you trade back if you didn't? I mean, I understand that maybe at the time they were like, all right, Jack Smith-Njigba was never going to fall for us. We might as well trade up, get the best we can, and help us win in the future.
Yeah, they could have gotten a lineman, though, if they had waited, too. It felt like a panic move because they literally just couldn't decide between Stroud and Anderson. Okay, while we're on the topic of Stroud, okay, it is my working theory. Actually, I don't even think it's a theory. I think it's a fact. Rookie quarterbacks should not start in the NFL. I feel like if you look back over the last 25 years of quarterback development in the NFL, it is a massive mistake to just because guys are drafted in the first round or drafted in the top 10, to just throw them in there as the starter. The list of flameouts is phenomenal, okay, compared to a lot of the all-time greats that sat and learned for their first year. Guys like Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, Eli Manning, okay? Let the kids sit and learn. Right now, heading into this season, Davis Mills is a better quarterback than CJ Stroud. He is. Right now, today, if you had to play one game for your soul, you'd have a better chance of winning with Davis Mills than you would with CJ Stroud. Now, my question to you is, what do you think DeMeco Ryans in the Texans front office is going to do? Are they just going to not learn from recent history and all the mistakes that other teams have made and just throw Stroud in there? Or do you think they're going to start the season with Davis Mills and then maybe turn to Stroud somewhere down the line?
I actually personally think that they might not even go to Davis Mills. They signed another quarterback recently. That's another veteran. It was, let me check. I can't remember his name off. Case Keenum, actually, former Texans quarterback. Actually, I think honestly, I would rather see him over Davis Mills. I think Case Keenum's more proven quarterback. I think he'd be a surprise starter if they're gonna start somebody veteran wise. I don't think Davis Mills is proven enough to actually start over him. Case Keenum would be such a better mentor in my opinion than Davis Mills. Case Keenum, I mean, I think he played 2 years ago for the Cleveland Browns. He played 2 games. He won his 2 games he played, threw 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 200 yards, 300 yards, I think, with a 60% completion percentage. I mean, he still shows that he can play. He still has good arm. Like, he still has the opportunity to start and win you games. I mean, but at the same time, when you think about his Texans tenure, he wasn't great, but I think when you realize that he was in the playoffs, he led a team to the playoffs. Minnesota, I believe, 2017. You can't deny the fact that Case Keenum would be perfect to start for a few games rather than Davis Mills.
Well, I agree with you. And for me, whether it's Davis Mills or Case Keenum, I have no problem with that. You're right. Case Keenum can sling it. He's extraordinarily accurate. He's not a long-term building block, but we're just talking about the season. So I would have 0 problems with Case Keenum being the starter. But it sounds like you agree with me that it would be better to go with one of the veteran options rather than to go with CJ Stroud from day one.
No, I agree. I mean, CJ Stroud, I don't think he's ready yet. I think you give him, if anything, if you're going to play him mid-season at most, but even then, I don't even think you play him at all at one point. I think you give him a year, let Davis Mills, I guess, or Case Keenum play a year, let one of their contracts expire, and then give CJ Stroud next year his opportunity sophomore year to improve and then start. I
Thank
think it
you.
makes
You
sense to
agree with
me.
me. I feel like we're on an island here, though, because I feel like the general consensus in the NFL right now is you draft a guy in the top 10, he's got to start. Okay. I think Carolina is
Right.
going to do it. I think they're making a big mistake. I think Indianapolis is going to go to Richardson too early this year. And I think it's going to be a mistake. I don't think that these guys should see the field in their first year. And I understand everyone's all about, oh, you got to win when your quarterback's on his rookie deal. Well, with the 5th-year option, that's a 5-year window. So I feel very strongly that teams do their young quarterbacks a disservice by throwing them out there. And to shift back to the Texans in this year, I'm actually excited for the Texans. I'm kind of bullish on them. I know I'm in the minority here when I see most power rankings, when I see most people projecting out for the Texans this year, they have them as one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league. I got them a little bit better than that, but I feel like they're really underrated and undervalued. And I feel like if they do get some competent quarterback play, they have some pieces. I love what they did in the offseason, bringing in a lot of the veterans that they did. They have a real big boy NFL roster right now. Okay. They haven't had that the last 2 years. And when you consider what division they are in, I think they got a chance to win some games. So, which side of the ball do you think it is more important to see progress from early in the season? The offensive side or the defensive side?
I gotta say the offense. I think the defense is already proven. I mean, you already got Jalen Petrie from last year, or Derek Singletary, or that Derek Stingley. I'm sorry,
Anyway.
Derek Stingley. I mean, those two are proven guys, and most of the team on defense is signed veterans. So offensively, you got a bunch of rookies. Tank Dell from Houston, Xavier Hutchinson, Damian Pierce, second year. Will he thrive in this offense, or will he have a down year in his sophomore season? You got a rookie quarterback. You got a bunch of young guys on tight ends, back up behind your tight end. There's 2 good young guys. You got offensive line, still decently young. Second year, I think Kenyon Green is going into second year. Juice Scruggs is going to be the starter. You got to see a lot of progress in the offense. That's where I see it.
Okay, what are you hearing out of Texans camp? They brought in Bobby Slowick from San Francisco, came with D'Amico Ryan. So you know he's going to be running some version of that Shanahan system. What are you hearing about the Texans offensively right now?
I've heard recently, actually, they're trying to move Damian Pierce to a more receiving back, giving him more roles. I've heard that Nick Collins has been he's starting to grow on his own. I've seen that CJ Stroud's been proven. He's proving that he's able to lead this team. He's getting the first team reps with ease. He's showing that he can build this team chemistry. He's understanding this team. Juice Scruggs, like I said, he's an absolute dynamite offensive lineman right now. He's impressed everybody at camp right now. He's being that leader that everybody expected him to be when he played at Penn State. You got all these veterans. I heard that they're really good. This offensive line is probably going to be one of the best they've had in a while. And then you got Devin Singletary competing for this job, and I think that's what's going to scare Damian Pierce a little bit. A guy behind him that could take his job, and I think that's what's going to push him harder, and I like that.
Yeah, they have a cornerstone left tackle. I love the maneuver to get Shaq Mason. You mentioned using a second-round pick on Juice Scruggs. You know, you have a guy like George Fant, who is a veteran who can play either tackle spot. You need depth throughout the season. I really feel like they've done a good job of building up that offensive line this offseason with some kind of sneaky good moves, right? And you mentioned being high on Devin Singletary. I'm extraordinarily high on Damian Pierce. He was a guy that had a lot of buzz coming out of camp last year. I felt like he justified the hype early in the season. He got hurt in the middle of the year. That derailed him a little bit. But playing in that Shanahan system that they're going to be in right now, it's a running back friendly system. I really feel like he could be a breakout candidate. And same thing with Dalton Schultz. I liked what I saw with him in Dallas. That was a team, that was an offense that had a lot of weapons. Okay. That tight end position is very, very important in that kind of Shanahan Kubiak offensive system. You've seen tight ends put up a lot of monster numbers. So Schultz and Pierce are 2 guys I really think are going to be key for the offense. Now, who do you think, is there a player, is there a position group that you think is going to be the key to the defense for the Texans this year?
I like the defensive line. Defensive line is easily, I think, the best they've re-signed. They've made a lot of additions. You could say the linebackers. They made a lot of additions. Also, linebacker core. But I think that defensive line is going to be one of the best in the league. I mean, you have so much talent. I like Dylan Horton. They drafted, and I believe it was the 4th round at TCU. Absolutely excellent defensive end. I don't know. He's going to be a rotation player, but if he's on the field, I think he's going to wreak havoc on quarterbacks. Uh, if you remember in the national championship semifinal game against Michigan, he had 3 sacks. I think when they need him, he's going to be so good for that team in the future. They signed a lot of defensive ends. I can't think of off the top of my head. They just made so many signings. That defensive line, it's just
Hassan Ridgeway. They brought in Will
exactly yeah.
Anderson. There's some depth. There's some talent. Chase Winovich is another guy who is proven that he can be a starter in this league. I have to say that I personally am very excited about their secondary. Okay, if their defensive line is as good as you think they are, I honestly and legitimately think they could end up having one of the best secondaries in the AFC. Okay, you're talking about Steven Nelson, Stingley, Petrie, Desmond King. They bring in Jimmy Ward, Pro Bowl caliber safety, knows the system. Right. You know, you have 2 guys, Eric Murray and Shaq Griffin. I feel like they would be starters in a lot of secondaries. They're their number 6 and number 7 options in the secondary. So I think that the back end of that defense has a chance to be very, very good. So, okay. Looking at the offense, looking at the defense, let's talk keys to the season. What do you think? Let's put the quarterback thing aside. Obviously, that's going to be the determinant of who the Texans are and how good they are is what they get from the quarterback position. But the rest of the team, again, what's maybe one position group or one guy that you feel like how they go, the Texans season is going to go?
I think it's sort of an easy question here, in my opinion. I think it's Dalton Schultz. I mean, you put all that money in Dalton Schultz. I think if he has a good year, that offense is going to flourish because it takes the pressure off of Dameon Pierce, makes the ball move much quicker if you have a really good offense. Receiving core, that's another key to their success. They have a bunch of young talent on that receiving core, and you're looking at John Mechie III. You're looking at, will he come back and be the person that they expected him to be, or will he just not, or will he still be rusty from not playing for 2 years? You got Noah Brown from the Cowboys. He be a player that surprises a bunch of teams. You also have, they just signed the one receiver from, it's not the Cowboys, but I can't think of his name. They've made so many signings to that offense and to the receiving core. I think that receiving core, if you can build that team chemistry at that receiving end, I think they will be one of the best offenses if you get that right. I mean, they made so many additions to that receiving core. It's bad that, yes, you added veterans, but they're also so young. It's questionable where they're going to go with it.
I feel like you're even I'm high on the Texans. I feel like you're even higher on the Texans than I am this year. I feel like expecting them to be a top 10 offense is premature, but I think that we're going to see enough improvement on that side of the ball. And I think we're going to see leaps and bounds. I expect their defense to be in the top half, maybe the top dozen defenses in the league. Now, let me ask you, what is something that maybe the mainstream media narrative or maybe people that don't follow the Texans as closely as you do, what is something that people either don't know or they are just kind of getting wrong about this team heading into the season?
They're getting wrong the fact that they're not a fighting team. I think that fans don't realize that this team, last year they lost a lot, but they fought hard for most of their losses. I mean, I think they lost a lot of games by less than a touchdown or 2. They're going to fight. And if you have all these young players, these veterans, and you still have that fighting chemistry, I think they're going to surprise a lot more teams than you expect, a lot of fans. And I think the thing I love about this team is they're young, and everybody loves a young team. Everybody loves an underdog team. And this is one of those underdog teams that you got to root for. I mean, if you don't, I think you got to jump on the bandwagon. It's hard not to root for this team. There's a lot of good things going for them.
Again, I have to say, I agree with you. I feel like this is the on the up and up. Now, before I let you go, uh, actually, Jackson,
A
are you
lovable.
there? Oh, there he is. All right, Jackson. Sounds like we're breaking up here. So if you can get reconnected, I just want to ask what your opinion is. The season win total for this team is set at 6.5 right now. I feel like I know where you're going with this, but I'm going to let you answer. If you put $1,000 down, do you think Houston would go over or under that 6.5 win total?
Now, you might think I was going to say 10, but I'd say 8. Over 8. I'd say it would be 8 wins. I'm not expecting them to obviously win the division, but I know they definitely could get a wild card spot, I think, in my opinion.
Okay, so you're expecting them to go
I mean,
over that 6.5 win total that Vegas is
yes.
set right now.
I think I could see over 6. I think a lot of teams are going to underestimate this team, and there's not enough scouting, in my opinion, for a bunch of these young talents, so it's going to be harder for teams to stop them.
Well, I think it helps playing in the worst division in the league as well, right? Not a very
Right,
not a
yeah.
very tough division. I'm not as high on the Jaguars as a lot of people are. I think Houston is, or excuse me, I feel like Tennessee is rebuilding and Indianapolis is just bad. So I feel like there's going to be some wins up for grabs there for the Texans. I feel like wild card might be premature, but I'm with you. I'm expecting them right around 7 or 8 wins. And look, we see it every year in the NFL, right? Just about every season, there is a team that goes worst to first in one of the divisions. It's not beyond the realm to think that in this kind of wide open weak division that Houston couldn't make some major noise. So look, Jackson, I want to thank you again for coming on here. I really appreciate your time and your insight. Again, you can follow Jackson at the Toro Times, one of the fan-sided websites. Thank you for coming on. To everyone else out there, be sure to check back tomorrow for more videos as I count down the top 32 teams in the NFL this season. I'm Robert Ferringo. We are Doc Sports. Carpe diem, and good luck.